subject matter that all the commissioners hear about in the great conversation about the county. So thank you for that. Thank you. We're going to drop out now just a little bit from the county, and I'm excited to introduce Matt McCombs, who he says Director of Colorado State Forest Service. I think of him as the State Forester. Matt, we're so lucky to have Matt working at CSU and with the State Forest Service, given his incredible experience, not only as being a native of Colorado, but having most recently managed the Gunnison District for the U.S. Forest Service. He's got extensive knowledge of forestry, not only from the U.S. Forest Service, but now bringing that to the State Forest Service. And how excited I am was to see in his biography that he worked for Senators Salazar and Tester, two guys who understood and still understand forest management and the need to make sure that federal partnership is so important. And we're glad to have you as our partner at the state. So please help me in welcoming Matt McCombs.
Okay. Look at that good-looking guy.
I've never had a professional language before, so it's the first time I've seen it in lights.
My kids said I looked old.
Distinguished.
Yeah. They say a lot of mean things. So again, Matt McCombs, I'm your state forester and the director of the Colorado State Forest Service. I'll talk a little bit about my background in a minute, but this image on the slide is from last year's Morgan Creek fire. And it speaks to why we're all here. You know, fire is a natural part of the ecosystem. It's played roles in healthy forests for millennia. And yet, due to a variety of factors that I'm hoping most of you are aware, it's one of the most important challenges that we have to face down as Coloradans today. Our communities have to move toward an adaptation. And I just want to applaud all of you for taking what is the most critical step that you can take as a community. And that is to bring all of the resources that you have available, all of the mind power, all of the experience and wisdom, bring it together in a way that maximizes the potential that you're going to be able to face down the challenges that are in front of us by taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us as well. So before we get into resiliency and mitigation, I just want to talk a little bit about my background so you know who I am. I spent almost 15 years with the U.S. Forest Service as a line officer in Eagle, Colorado, as the Eagle Holy Cross. Worked in North Carolina in the Appalachian Mountains, which, as a Colorado boy, I'll tell you, I still sort of reside in a Blue Ridge state of mind on certain days, which usually involves bourbon and bluegrass. And then most recently, I was a district ranger on the Gunnison Range and lived in Crested Butte, fortunately enough. And in all of those roles, I had immense opportunities to work in this space on these issues as an implementer, with as was mentioned, with a policy background. I've now shifted into a policy role with an implementer's mindset. And I really do believe that that's going to be beneficial as we move out on the critical challenges that are in front of us. Those pictures there, that's me and Sam Pankratz working on a project. Sam was a supervising forester at the time in Gunnison. You know, we did an amazing, if you take anything, you could write down a story of everything working. You Google that, but we have a super cool video that will talk about what attracted me to the State Forest Service. It's the amazing partnership that we have in the federal government with the unique resources that only the State Forest Service has out on the ground. The other is I've transitioned from this role into this role. You know, I've been getting to know staff all across the 17 field offices we have across Colorado. I think those are our friends in Canyon City. I look forward to coming back over to the Western Slope that I'm deeply familiar with, having lived in, I was doing this list for one of you earlier. Let's see, Mancos, Durango, Gypsum, Clifton, Eagle, Minturn, Gunnison, and Crested Butte. So lots of opportunities to familiarize myself with the various challenges and unique qualities of Colorado's Western Slope, having been born and raised on the Front Range. I'm excited to be here in Routt County today as your state forester to engage in this conversation. I really appreciate you inviting me. So it's a critical moment in Colorado's forests. Years of persistent drought have stressed forests in Colorado all across the state, creating ideal conditions for insects and disease outbreaks, and of course, large catastrophic wildfires. These conditions, combined with an ever-growing population that continues to push deeper and deeper into the backcountry and into that interface between wildlands and developed property, continues to challenge planners, wildfire responders, wildfire mitigation specialists, and a variety of other folks involved in the effort of trying to move Colorado to a resilient, fire-adapted state and push us to a point where we can live with wildland fire, acknowledging that the present that we're living is very much going to be reflective of the future that we're going to be facing down together. There's no magic wand turning off the presence of large-scale wildfire across this state and certainly across the Intermountain West. And so adaptation and building a resiliency into our systems is critical. You know, in 2020, I think the game completely changed in people's minds. The types of fires that I've been working on as a fire manager and working on incident management teams for the last decade, all across California and the Pacific Northwest, that sort of came home to Colorado in 2020. You know, one of the places I didn't mention was Grambling. I used to spend my summers there as a kid. My parents moved up there after I graduated from high school in Littleton, and the house that they lived in Columbine Lake burned to the ground. The Bussy Ranch, where I was a wrangler at the Wine River Ranch, burned to the ground. The lodge where I got engaged to my wife of 24 years almost burned to the ground. So I couldn't even go to these troubles. I took an assignment in Oregon because I couldn't bear to witness one of the places I love more than anything on this planet laid to ruin. And then I came up to Pluter Canyon from Fort Collins this morning. I hadn't seen Canyon Peak and all the damage that they've done up close in that way. And I got to tell you, it was impactful. What's possible in the unique moment that we're in Colorado's forest. It also footstomped for me the work that we need to do together. That's the only way we're going to solve this challenge. Perhaps solve is the wrong word. It's the only way we're going to address this challenge together is by bringing the variety of resources that we have available in this room and certainly across the state and the nation, and bring them to bear in a way that hopefully will be transformational. Acknowledging that there's a heck of a lot of challenges in front of us. There's an immense amount of opportunities. I think 2020 in particular here activated our federal delegation in a way that perhaps the fire seasons and the challenges associated with wildfire hadn't in the past. And I got to give huge credit, in particular, Senator Bennett and his leadership in Congress that pushed so hard to ensure that in the infrastructure bill, a sizable portion, a sizable down payment on the problem that we're trying to face down together was made. And with that, you know, there's just a variety of opportunities coming online that, because I only have 10 minutes, which I'm already pushing up against, we won't get into, but I will be closing out this session. And I hope we have an opportunity for you to dig in on the questions you have about the emerging programs that are coming out of the infrastructure bill. The one in particular I think is interesting is the Community Wildfire Defense Grant. You know, you're in the midst of updating your CWPP. This program is designed specifically to support those kinds of efforts and also implement those projects that are specifically outlined in your community wildfire protection plan. In addition, the state in 21, the General Assembly made probably the largest investment that they've made in Colorado history in wildfire mitigation and forest health and forest resiliency. They boosted for years the wildfire mitigation program that was housed in DNR had been funded on Tier 2 severance taxes, and it really rarely ever got over $1 million. And when it did, it was difficult to get some of those dollars to the ground. That program is now the Forest Restoration Wildfire Risk Mitigation, or FIRWORM program, and it has a solid $8 million a year line item in a long bill that we'll be able to get to ground year in and year out. In addition, the very similar changes to Healthy Forest, Vibrant Communities Trust Fund, which is managed by the State Forest Service, has a solid $2 million annual allocation that supports our organization for staffing and capacity, but also creates a substantial amount of funding that can go to ground as well. This combination of state and federal investments is truly remarkable, and yet it was quick. It was interesting to see how quickly the regional forester for the U.S. Forest Service, who's my counterpart, pivot from this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to this is just a down payment. I mean, literally saw that in their language in a very small amount of time. And to their credit, they acknowledge that this is just a down payment. And that what I am interested in doing, though, and certainly in partnership with you and with groups like this all across the state, is ensuring that we're going to have success and we demonstrate that we're a good return on investment to incentivize future investments so we can continue to move out together. And if we're going to do that, with all those funds and all those opportunities, how do you take advantage of it, acknowledging that there's limited resources, limited capacity, and you're going to be in competition with communities all across Colorado that have very similar challenges that we're facing here in Routt County. Well, my message to you is be ready to receive. So my moniker, or my mantra, I should say, when I was a ranger, is I'm not a rain maker, I'm a rain taker. And that is, I made sure my meat was done. I made sure that my projects had social support across the spectrum of political ideologies that folks were engaged in the planning. I ensured that all of our partners were activated and ready to engage and bring nonprofit capacity, community capacity, and other resources so that when other projects failed and other people couldn't meet it, I was ready to just step right in and offer a suite of options so that those dollars can get to ground. I encourage you to follow that path. Do everything you possibly can. See all the right people in the room right now, which is fantastic. I see federal partners, regional partners, state partners, local communities, NGOs, as well as a variety of other resources that have purchase in this game. Everyone needs to be in the room. And if you can get all that lined out and have a clear picture about what your priorities are, where you want to move out first, and then next, I'd be willing to stake a certain level of my integrity on the fact that you'll see investment. And yet I am saying this message everywhere I go across the state, so I may be in trouble in time. But be ready to receive and recognize that collaboration is doing something together that you could not have done on your own. And so engaging each other, telling each other what you want out loud, what you want to see out of the work that you do together, visioning the future in a way that everyone can see themselves reflected is the secret sauce to getting transformational work done at the scale that matches the problem that's in front of us. So I hope that you continue to use this model to bolster your success and to make you a very competitive and easy investment for people like myself and others. I look forward to the discussion today, and I'm going to close us out this afternoon. So I'm going to be taking copious notes about the dialogue that we have, and I'm going to do my best to reflect that back to you, and then also hopefully have some time to engage on some of the things that I quickly went over as it relates to some of the funding that's available. And I was thinking about, like, moving out in front of the governor. I don't think that's a good idea. I've only done this job for 4 months, but there's some sizable investments being contemplated right now in the legislature that will bolster our position pretty substantially if they come into fruition. And depending on what kind of text I get throughout the day, I'll do what I can to get you up to speed on some of the exciting things that the General Assembly is contemplating literally as we speak with the sizable amount of stimulus dollars that are still sort of left there in your kitty. The last thing I want to say is the Colorado State Forest Service, having been in this organization now only for 4 months, but having worked with them over the last few years, is an incredibly amazing resource in this state. And I'm so proud to lead it as the director and as your state forester. And I'm so proud of the resources that you have embedded in your own community that I know are paying huge dividends in getting you transitioning and moving towards that dream of resiliency and adaptation. And just because I like to do shameless things from time to time, if I can just have my employees stand up real quick, I'd like to do all that. Just let's give them a hand of applause. Colorado State Forest Service. When he told me earlier, he doesn't get enough recognition in life, and so I told him this is very subtle, hard to find in the crowd kind of guy. But I just want to footstone. It's an incredibly unique resource the state has, and it's my pleasure to lead it. And I look forward to leading us into a place where that our success is your success, and vice versa, and that we continue to be leaders as conveners and drivers as it relates to the important historic work that we're embarking on together that starts with this, well, I guess that continues with this conversation today. With that, those are all